Hello, welcome to the second half of the Beckyinboca show. And I have two amazing guests here with me, Karen Hansen and Laura Rockland. Am I saying that right?
Yes.
And I'm just going to let you two tell us what you do because it's too overwhelming for me to exactly cover the whole thing and explain it right. So go ahead.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Becky, for having us today on the show. Again, I'm Laura Rockland, and my business partner and best friend is Karen Hansen, and we are the founders of a company called Wren Roch. And everybody asks us all the time, well, what does that stand for? How did you come up with the name?
It's a cool name.
Thank you. Yeah. So we made it up in the airport going through security one day, but the Wren is for Karen, and my last name is Rockland, so that's how we came up with the Roch.
Wren Roch.
Yes.
Okay. And what is Wren Roch?
Well, Wren Roch is a high-fashion social impact brand, and our mission is to empower victims and survivors of rape, domestic violence, and childhood sexual assault by raising awareness, because we need to talk about these subjects more often and more openly because they're very taboo, and we need to change that. We want to eliminate stigma, so we stop victim blaming, and then ultimately educate for the prevention of abuse.
And why are you two interested in doing this?
The story is very personal for the two of us.
Do you want to share it?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And the reason that we share our story is because we do want to educate. We are sort of becoming the poster children for the things that have happened to us. Go ahead, you start.
Okay, so this is a lot of information, a lot of it's personal, but we feel that if we're sharing this information, that we're empowering other victims and survivors and ultimately preventing this from happening to other women and children. Because with education, 95% of abuse can be avoided. So Karen and I are both survivors of college campus rape. Mine was a date rape situation. It was someone that I knew, someone that I had gone out with, and we went back to my apartment after going out, and he forced himself on me against my will and had sex with me. So I, ran into my roommate's room. Her boyfriend went in and kicked the guy out. So this was like 20-some years ago, where date rape and, acquaintance rape really wasn't a thing.
And I think this happens sometimes to young women and they don't tell anybody.
Exactly.
Because they
Correct.
feel like it's their fault.
Or you just don't know. I'm going to call the police. I mean, I
Right,
knew, it just,
embarrassed?
I didn't know what my choices were at that time. So other than my roommate and her boyfriend, they were really the only ones, who knew. So Karen's situation was a little different. She had gone out with a group of friends, some girlfriends, and there were two guys in the group. They went out. She was having a bad day. They're like, let's go out and we'll cheer you up. So they went out. They drank. She drank a lot of beer. That's what you do in college. And when she was going home, they lived in a townhouse community, and she was 2 doors away from her friend's house. And she's like, okay, I'm going to go. And her friend's like, well, let my boyfriend walk you home. He's leaving anyway. And she's like, no, I'm good. I'm good. She's 5'2", but, she's pretty
I can take care of
fierce.
myself.
Yeah.
So they're like, no, just let him walk you home. So she did. She let him walk her home. He came into her house and he raped her. The result of her rape was pregnancy and the birth of her daughter, who is now 22 years old and is an amazing human being. So, obviously, that was a silver lining for her, but she should never have had to go through that to begin with.
Right. And I want to just jump in with two really important statistics. Like you said, most rapes go unreported. And actually, it's 93% of rapes.
93%?
Yes. And 5% of those rapes every year in the U.S. alone result in pregnancy. So if you've ever been to a Miami Heat game, you can actually fill that arena 2 times with the number of pregnancies that result from rape every single year, just in the U.S.
Oh, you're kidding.
I wish I was kidding.
Oh, my gosh.
And the other thing I was going to say.
So is this still going on college campuses?
Absolutely. And the other thing that I want to say that's really important, so many people are so ready to victim blame. They think,
I know.
Oh, were you drinking, or what were you wearing? Did you have a short skirt on? Were you flirting? All of those things. People don't realize that is victim blaming. And it's hard enough to come forward with your story as it is. And that should tell you 93% of women and men don't come forward with their story because you know that that's what you expect.
Sure.
I mean, the statistics are today 1 in 5 girls and 1 in 16 boys will be sexually assaulted their freshman or sophomore year of college. And those are only
1
the
in
ones,
5?
1 in
Yes.
5 girls. And those are only ones that are reported. And the thing is,
Oh, so there's all the other ones that we don't even know.
Right.
Right.
And only 4% are false claims of rape. So 96% of the time, these
true.
people are telling the truth. But because of the ones that you hear, everyone jumps on that bandwagon.
right. So how do we avoid this? Well, we need to start educating our children when they're younger. Doing it freshman orientation, first day of college is not the time because
But educating them to do what? Like if it's a young woman, how can she prevent this? I mean, your two situations.
Yes. Well, in my situation, I mean, the thing is, once this happens to you, you tend to go back in time. What could I have done differently? How could I have changed the result of what happened? And, you know, there's never a way to prevent all of these things from happening. But in my case specifically, if I had walked home with one of my female friends, or if I had not let him walk me home, you know, you think you're being safe by having this big man walk you home because it's late at night and you've been drinking. Girls just need to stick together. That's just the bottom line. You need to be at least 2 girls at all times, you know, not have your drink exposed when you're in a bar, and just, even if it's someone you know, because we just spoke at the University of Miami last week. And all of this is very fresh, which is why my voice sounds so crackly. We've told this story so many times, and it just does not get old. And I even said to Laura last week, I was like, our story is 20 years old. Does anyone really care? Is anyone paying attention? Is this
they do.
really still
Right.
happening? And we had a young girl come up to us after we spoke about college campus rape and sexual assault. And this young girl, who's a pre-med student, comes up to us and says, this just happened to me this year, almost the exact same story as what happened to you. And I tried to press charges. I did all of the right things. I went to the hospital. There's video surveillance, and the charges get dropped.
Why is that?
I wish I had the answer to this.
and here's the thing, this is not about male bashing.
Not at all.
At all, because 92% of men are great. It's the 8% that commit 90% of the crime. So especially even in college, again, there's a lot of parties, there's alcohol involved.
People
So
are
if you're at a
drinking.
fraternity
Right.
party and as a man and you see a guy, even if you're a 5'9" guy, and you see this 6'3", big guy, and he's like trying to get the girl to go to his room, or she's really drunk and he's trying to put the moves on her, we need more bystander intervention. So you don't want to go up and make an issue with that guy. So you grab a buddy, you go get her, and you say, hey, Susie, come take a photo with us. Or, hey, Susie, your mom just called Josh's cell phone. She needs to speak to you. Get her out of that situation. Don't turn the other cheek, because if you are, you're just as
Helping.
guilty. You're just as
Exactly.
guilty.
And it leaves a lifetime scar. That's what people don't understand. For the predator, I'll say, it's a one time. Actually, they're usually repeat offenders, but it's a few minutes of fun. They don't even remember the
Right,
person's name.
Right.
And they're drinking and
But when
Exactly.
you're on our end of it, you remember the name, you remember the smell, you remember the room, you remember details that you wish you could forget.
And now, did either of you two come forward at the time?
No.
No. Wow.
So
No,
we're not
and
even 1 in
being
5.
pregnant, I still didn't.
Yeah,
Because
you're
we
not
don't
even the
report.
ones that are counted.
No.
Wow, that's amazing.
So one of the things that we've done with our company is we've become corporate partners with a campaign, an organization called It's On Us, which was started by the former administration back in September 2014. And it's out there to end sexual assault on college campuses. So like Karen was saying, the University of Miami is an It's On Us school. And we're happy to report that there are 500 colleges across this country that are now It's On Us schools. So there's zero tolerance for
So how does
sexual
that?
assault.
What does that do, though?
It brings awareness onto the college campuses. They have the resources available for students.
They
and
talk
it's a
about
pledge.
intervention and give examples to kids of how to intervene, how to stand up for each other and look out for each other. They teach boys what rape is, because half the time they don't even know what rape is. So there's a video that we've seen on YouTube. It's called Consent Tea, T-E-A, like a cup of tea. And it basically compares offering someone a hot cup of tea to having sex. So if I offer you a cup of tea today and you say yes, great. I go make tea and I give it to you. If I offer you tea again tomorrow and you say no, I'm not going to force you to drink it. Or if I offer you tea and you say yes, and then I go make the tea and put milk and do all these things and bring it back to you, and you're like, you know what, I changed my mind. I don't want tea now. I'm not going to make you drink it anyway. Or if you had tea last week, it doesn't mean you want it again this week. So it just breaks it down into literally stick figures that people can understand. It's so basic. If someone's passed out, you don't pour hot tea down their throat. You just don't. If they can't respond to you to answer if they want tea or not, they probably don't want tea. So
it's very simple. And
I see your point. Okay.
You know, 15-year-old boys and 65-year-old men can understand that. It's very basic.
Right.
So we're tackling the college campus rape because that's personal to us. So then fast forward, I get married a week after college, which I don't recommend. It's dumb.
Looking right into the camera and saying, do not try this at home.
And I was married for 16 years with my husband for 18, and for 10 of those years, I was a victim of domestic violence. It was verbal, it was emotional, it got physical one time, and it was economical. And I finally, after having 3 children, got the courage to leave. One day I was like, I've had enough, I'm not doing this anymore. And I filed for divorce. And 4 weeks after our divorce was finalized, my ex-husband ended his life. So, in that day, my mother said, thank God you didn't take my daughter or my grandchildren.
Right.
You know, because I was like a dead woman walking. Wow. Yeah, it was scary. And at the time, I kind of compartmentalized it because every other aspect of my life was so great. I work with my best friend. I have 3 amazing children. You know, my parents have been married for 52 years. I have 2 older sisters, and they've been married for almost 30 years. And I didn't want to face it, because if I told my family, then I'd have to do something about it. And I was afraid to address it.
Sure.
And I think a lot of women walk around, and I'm educated, I own my own business, and you think about someone who's a victim of domestic violence, and you think they have no teeth in their mouth, they live in a trailer, and they have no resources, and that's not the case. And with domestic violence, it's all about power, and slowly but surely they chip away at you until they're in control.
They're in control. Yeah.
And especially a lot of powerful women are victims of domestic violence, because a guy
Really?
sees a woman who's, you know, in a high profile position, and he wants to be able to control that.
Wow. Okay,
Yes.
so now tell us about your handbags and how that.
Well, we
is
still have one more
helping.
piece
No,
of
go
the
ahead, go
story
ahead.
that we
Okay.
have to say,
Go
because
ahead.
sadly
Yes.
the story gets worse before
no,
it gets
no.
better. I know.
I
No.
thought we heard it all. What is?
So the last piece of the storyline here is that when I was, fast forward in my story, I ended up getting married as well. And when my daughter was 11 years old, and I was 9 months pregnant with my son, my daughter came to me and told me that she had been molested by my husband at the time.
What?
Yes.
You can't make this up. It's like nonfiction is crazier than fiction.
No. So that's why we are tackling these 3 issues: rape, domestic violence, and childhood sexual assault, because we have just had enough, and people do not talk about these subjects. It's embarrassing. You know, the predators count on the fact that victims are
Aren't gonna say
embarrassed.
anything.
They're ashamed. They blame themselves. They feel like it's their fault. And so they feel like they don't have a voice. And we've just had it. We're going to be their voice. We're going to stand up for them. And we're going to encourage others to do that, because as a society and as a community, we're 2 people. There are 300. I have to look in the camera for this.
Yes,
There are 317 million. Did I get that right?
I think it's 14, but whatever.
314 million people in the United States. We will never get to all of them by ourselves. We need help so that people are not victim blaming. We need help so that when someone comes forward and says, this happened to me, believe them, because it's too embarrassing to make it up.
Right. Why would anyone make that up?
Why would anyone make it up? Especially with athletes. People think, well, she's just after the money. I'm like, there is not enough money in the world to make you come out and say something like that, because everyone is going to say it's about the money. Everyone is going to say that you're just looking for 15 minutes of fame. Who wants that fame? Who wants that kind of fame?
Right.
So anyway.
We'll talk about handbags, But one thing, I mean, everyone to
There's nothing else to the story,
just listen to
luckily.
this. One statistic for those who have children and grandchildren: 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 5 boys will be sexually assaulted before their 18th birthday, and the average age for a boy is 4 years old.
And those are from the Department of Justice. So those are not Karen and Laura made up
And
statistics.
do you know who they're molested by?
90% of the time, it's someone they know and trust. So a step parent,
Someone the parents
an
would
uncle,
know and
a biological grandparent, an older
Biological
Bio-
parents, even, yes.
Yes.
And just even yesterday, we heard another story about you would be shocked. Coaches, teachers, church.
Can you imagine what it's
People-
like to be 4 years old and have
No.
that happen
They
to you?
don't know what
Innocence
to
is
do.
stolen.
They
and
don't
you
know
would
what to do.
grow up with that in your psyche,
Right.
not knowing
Right.
how to fit that into your...
Correct. So with these heavy issues, what we're doing is we're using fashion as our vehicle to get our message out to the world. So we have a line of handbags, which is the Wren Roch part. Our handbags are made in the garment district in New York City. So yay, we're supporting our national economy. And all of our leathers are hand finished and embossed in West Palm Beach. So we're also helping our local economy. So I know you wanted us to bring some
I
bags
saw
on.
that, because they're amazing.
We'll talk about fun things
And now
now.
tell us how this is going to help.
Okay, so what we're doing with Wren Roch, when you purchase a Wren Roch handbag, we donate a percentage of our proceeds to organizations that are in alignment with our mission. So for all e-commerce sales, we donate to Lauren's Kids, which is an international organization that deals with prevention of childhood sexual assault and abuse.
They're
And
based in Miami-Dade
Right.
County.
And then a Safe Space Foundation, which is also based in Miami-Dade County, and it's for domestic violence shelter, and they have an empowerment program for women. They take in the children and get them, back on their feet.
They do counseling and relocation services if it's a situation where they need to get out of the state or out of the area.
Okay.
So that's one of the ways that we're giving back. And then by sharing our story,
Yeah, that's
which
the hardest part.
And speaking.
Right. We're
Right.
doing speaking engagements. So that's really helping, I think, to prevent abuse. We've already had people come to us and say, wow, I, bought the books that you recommended, from Kids Safe. And so I'm talking to my son and daughter, she's 4 or 5, about safe touch and unsafe touch. Just sharing our stories, I think, is really empowering people to not, become a victim,
Right.
like arm yourself with knowledge. So anyway, this bag we have 4 styles. This is called Street Smart, and it's inspired by brass knuckles.
I love that.
I'm like, do not mess with me. So
She means that.
That
cool-
is amazing.
the cool thing about this bag, it's
Wow.
actually like a functional piece of art. So you can carry
Yes.
it like this, or let's say you're at a cocktail party. You can hold a glass
Oh,
of
wow.
champagne
Oh,
or a plate of food.